It's lovely to see everyone. Thank you for coming to our meeting this evening. Just before we begin properly, we'll just do a few housekeeping bits and bobs.
And we're doing Sacre.
If Beth, microphone's on mute, please, if you're not speaking, just because sometimes I can pick up background noise on other people. It's first thing. Second thing, if anybody does have any questions, as always, please just use the hand up function. If for whatever reason I don't pick up, or whoever's chairing for that matter, because I may no longer be chair after the first bit of the meeting, but whoever is chairing, they might not pick up that. So Emily, if you're happy to moderate as always and just keep an eye on the chat box, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Before we do get to the nitty gritty of the meeting, I just want to welcome a couple of newbies to our meeting this evening. So Philip, you're new and you've joined us, and I believe you're joining us in the education group, Group C, and you're taking over from Philippa. So you're very welcome, and we're really pleased to have you on board and joining us on Sacre. And also we have a observer with us this evening. So we've got Claire Walsh. Just looking on my screen to see where Claire's picture is. Oh, you haven't got a camera on, Claire, but that's fine. You're very welcome, Claire. Do you mind just saying very briefly about who you are and where you're coming from, if that's all right, just so everybody knows who you are, if you do have any questions this evening?
Sure. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Sorry, I thought my camera was on, but I'm having a few technological difficulties, I guess. Hi, so I'm a humanist and I'm also a parent. So I've got a couple of kids in primary school in the borough. So interested in Sacre in terms of kind of how non-religious worldviews are being incorporated, and with the potential interest of becoming more involved or becoming a member if that was something that was available.
And that's definitely something that is available. So what we will probably do at the end of the meeting, Claire, is we'll ask you to leave and there'll be a confidential discussion between members, because what we can do is we can co-opt members into the Sacre, and it's something we have discussed before around sort of having humanists having representation on our Sacre, and then, like I said, you'll leave, we'll have a conversation, and then if it's something you are interested in, we sort of have said yes, we'd like to co-opt you, then you'd be more than welcome to come and join our Sacre.
Excellent, thanks very much. I'm nodding along.
The other thing I should have said, everyone, I apologise, is obviously, as you're aware, that this meeting is being streamed live and there will be a copy of it available on the local authority's website. If that is an issue for anybody, then that's totally fine. We'll accept your apologies and have a lovely evening. And you can just message Catherine and let Catherine know. Emily, have I missed any other housekeeping bits?
I don't think so, Stephen, thank you. Other than to say that, as usual, if anyone's got any other confidential items, that we do those right at the end of the meeting and we ask Callum to stop broadcasting at that point.
Thank you. So this is the time of the year that I hand over to Catherine.
For my last meeting, this is a very exciting opportunity to just say goodbye, as well as this is the session where we have to vote in a new chair and a new vice if we have nominations for such people. But I think you'll all be very happy to know, and perhaps surprised to know, that we don't have anybody new volunteering. And luckily for us, Stephen and Beth have both volunteered to do it again. So we're very, very grateful for that. But we all have to obviously agree to that before we can continue. So would you just like to have a show of hands for Stephen as chair? Great, thank you. And Beth as vice chair. Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, Stephen and Beth, I'd like to congratulate you once again on taking on the role of chair and vice chair. And I have to say that they've done an excellent job over many years, and we are so grateful, because it is a huge commitment, and things like this just can't happen unless you have people that give such commitment. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine. You're too kind. You're being too kind. And honestly, everyone, I'm not precious. If anybody else does want to take over as chair at any point, I'm more than happy for to step down. So thank you, and I know Beth appreciates everyone's vote as well. Thank you. But like I said, we're not precious, and if anybody does want to take over, we're more than welcome to work alongside you. So the first thing just to confirm is the minutes of our meeting from the summer term, which we had face to face, which is lovely to see everyone. I hope you all had an opportunity to read them. As always, I quite like taking the matters arising as we go through the meeting. So can I just have somebody just to confirm that we're a true record of our meeting held in the summer term? Thank you, Beth. And then somebody just to second that, please. Thank you, Adrian and Sam. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to skip. As I said, we will deal with the matters arising as going through. So as always, I really enjoy the updates from Emily. So it's over to you for item 5, Emily. How are things going for our colleagues in school?
Thanks, Stephen. During the pandemic, Ofsted were publishing a series of reports about how schools were responding and recovering from the pandemic. And they published their last one at the end of the summer term. And actually, although that's presenting the national picture, I find it really helpful in understanding how things are for Wokingham schools, because I think all the findings very much reflect how things are in Wokingham schools. So some of the things that report said was, first of all, it recognised the excellent work that schools have done to help children to catch up on their learning as a result of the pandemic, and it recognised that many children have caught up. However, it did identify that many children are still, at the end of the summer term, were not ready for the next stage of their education, academically, but also in some cases in terms of their wider development, things like their behaviour and their social skills, and also that the impact of the pandemic on children's well-being was still being seen in some cases, in terms of higher levels of anxiety and lower self-confidence. So this term, I think schools are still thinking in terms of supporting children to recover from the impact of the pandemic. And some interesting things that the report pointed out was that some issues that schools were dealing with before the pandemic have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And one of those things is at school attendance. So particularly children who are persistently absent from schools, that has become even more of an issue as a result of the pandemic. And certainly we have seen that in Wokingham. And in fact, our education welfare team in the borough have changed the way that they work with schools in recognition that attendance is increasingly an issue. So they're actually offering support for all the schools in the borough now, which is a change from how they used to work. Another issue that's been exacerbated by the pandemic is schools being able to access specialist support for children with special educational needs. That has, if anything, become even more challenging. Other challenges that the report identifies are staff shortages and difficulties with recruitment, and that's support staff as well as teachers, and a higher turnover of staff in schools. An increased workload for staff in school, and increasing special educational needs, so more applications for special educational needs assessments, higher numbers of children with education, health and care plans. And certainly in Wokingham, that was an issue before the pandemic, but it's even more so now. And there's actually a special educational needs improvement programme, a big programme of improvement happening in the borough that's looking at things including developing new specialist provision for children who need that higher level of support. We know from exams and tests that were taken in the summer that disadvantaged children have been particularly impacted by the pandemic, and that also applies to Wokingham. And in fact, outcomes for disadvantaged children in Wokingham are in many cases lower than for disadvantaged children nationally. And that was the case before the pandemic, and it still seems to be the case now. So Wokingham schools do have a particular focus on disadvantaged children. Of course, the cost of living is affecting families, and the borough is providing support for families that are particularly affected by that. But those rising costs are also affecting schools in terms of the costs of energy and the cost of food. So schools are under financial pressures. And schools are also continuing to support children that arrive from abroad, particularly from Ukraine and also from Hong Kong. And there's a real pressure on school places in some year groups in the borough where we've pretty much got no school places. So schools are having to take extra children to accommodate those new arrivals from abroad. So I think schools are really happy that they've returned to their normal provision and things are pretty much back to how they were before the pandemic. But they still have issues that they're dealing with that were caused by or exacerbated by the pandemic, as well as the impact of the cost of living and the new arrivals that I mentioned from abroad. So I think it continues to be a challenging time in schools. And as ever, when I do this item, I always feel conscious that there's people in this meeting who work in schools and could do this update much better than I could. So if anyone wants to add anything, then please do, or contradict anything I've said, or yeah. But thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any questions for Emily?
I'd only confirm what she's just said. That sounds like a really good generalisation of what's going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, I work across schools across Bracknell Forest, and it's exactly the same, Emily. So I also echo what you're saying, and I think at the moment, nationally and I guess locally, it's a very bleak picture at the moment in terms of the cost of living and the ongoing crisis and the war in Ukraine. Just I hope that, I don't know, 2023 things will improve. Maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic, but we can hope. Okay, if there are no questions or other comments for Emily, if we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the development plan and budget updates. So Angela and Emily.
Emily, did you want me to just highlight some of the points from the development plan? We shared the development plan at the last meeting, so this should be a very quick item just to give a few updates on salient points. As we alluded to at the start of this meeting, we really do urgently need to get at least one other member of Group B, the Church of England group, because we only have one member at the moment. We should have 3 in total, so ideally 2, but we could definitely do with another one so that we can have a full house there, and also make sure that we're quorate. We also need to fill 2 vacancies in Group A. So any ideas or thoughts are really welcome. We would like to recruit a Buddhist member and a non-C of E Christian as well, if at all possible. So we have actively been trying to do that, but without success at the moment. So not for lack of trying. There's still a typo on the documents that you've had on the first page. The last column on that first page still says 2019 to 20. It has been corrected, but I think the wrong version might have been included in the pack. So we'll make sure that you get the right version of that. We're going to deal with the draft annual report in the next item. I think one of the things that I would like to just really highlight is that we have been making lots of efforts really to engage with secondary teachers and find new ways of doing that, and obviously the online platforms that we now have been helping with that. It was one of the major points in our development plan, and we're doing that with some degree of success, and I'll talk about that on the networks item later on in the meeting. So really I just wanted to highlight some of the points that have been amended slightly since last time. I don't know if anybody's got any questions about the actual development plan for me or for Emily, but I'm happy to hand over to Emily to talk us through the budget, if not.
Thanks, Angela. So yeah, apologies that the budget update document somehow got missed out of the agenda pack, but Catherine kindly emailed it out to everyone this afternoon. And I think it's really quite straightforward in terms of the budget update. I've put in blue font the spending that's happened since I updated you at the last Sacre meeting. And you'll see that we've spent, where I've indicated the total amount we've spent, it's roughly half of our allocated budget for the year, and we are roughly halfway through the financial year. So I think everything to do with the budget is looking as if it's on track. We do have just over £100 in our budget that isn't allocated to anything yet. So I know it was a sort of ongoing item from the last meeting for anyone to contact me if they've got ideas for things that we could usefully spend money on. So I'm always happy to hear from people if they've got any ideas. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you. There's a couple of other things I'm just looking at for matters arising, Catherine, for minutes purposes. So Beth and Emily were supposed to can do some work on the budget and the wish list. Is that still ongoing, Emily?
Yeah,
okay.
We haven't managed to meet yet, I'm afraid.
So if we just put that down as continue that one as ongoing.
Yeah.
And I guess everyone as well, just contacting Emily if anybody, that was an action, and that's going ongoing as well. Nobody's contacted you regarding any sort of potential project ideas for that small pot of money that's available. So those were just a couple of actions for the minutes from the previous meeting. Is there any questions from anyone around the budget or the development plan? No? Okay, so if we move on to item 7, the draft annual report. Angela, this is...
Okay, so there is a draft annual report that Emily and I have been working on. The text of that is going to be sent to you after this meeting. There are a few points that need to be updated and dealt with for us to make it ready for you. It needs to be submitted to the Department for Education by the 31st of December, so we still have got plenty of time to do that, and it's well underway. What I would say about the draft annual reports thus far is that it makes us look like and we are indeed, a very lively and vibrant Sacre who was strong in many areas, particularly in respect of how much support we provide to teachers in the borough, and the ease with which teachers can contact us and be involved in networks and so on and so forth. So the annual report does tell a story of a Sacre that's in a very strong position and that is fulfilling its statutory duties and going beyond those statutory duties for the benefits of for the pupils and teachers in the borough. Emily, did you have anything to add to that at all?
I don't think so. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, just to reiterate what Angela said, that apologies, it's not ready to share with you now, but we will email it out to you shortly, and we're on track to get it submitted on time. So thanks, Angela.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate my thanks, or share my thanks to Angela and Emily for all the work they do on the annual report, because it's not an easy document to write, especially because they've changed the format, which we weren't too happy with. But I think Angela and Emily always write it in a way that I think really does show off the amazing work that we do within Wokingham. Normally every year I write our sort of foreword. If anybody would like to support with that, I'm more than happy to sort of write things alongside other sort of colleagues. Just drop me an email. Does anybody have any questions on the annual report? No, just seeing any hands up. I don't know. Okay, so the next item is item 8. This is feedback from teacher networks and training opportunities. So over to you again, Angela.
Yeah, me again. Yeah, just to let the Sacre know what's happened since last time we met. So the last meeting was on the 20th of June. Since then, we had the cross-phase face-to-face network, which was very exciting. It was the first face-to-face event that we've had with teachers for quite some time following the pandemic. It was reasonably well attended. We had 9 participants, and there were only 2 secondary teachers there, but the kind of atmosphere in the meeting was really collaborative, and teachers were very, grateful to actually be in a room with colleagues and have the opportunity for the informal chat before the meeting, and to help each other to support with what they're doing. It was a much more informal feel than the online training that we do. So that was hosted in St Crispin's School, and the feedback from that was that it was a really good location. So we've booked them again for, I think, March. Is that right, Emily? I think it's March, for another cross-phase network. So we do have some input with secondary teachers between now and then. Hopefully we can encourage more participants from secondary phase for that meeting. So the focus of that cross-phase meeting was very much about worldviews. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, and just updating teachers on what's going on in the world of RE and the latest thinking. And in the autumn term so far, we have had the primary subject leader training. Normally that doesn't happen until a little bit later in the year, but we've listened to feedback from teachers who said that it would be a much more useful event at the start of the year. Lots of them take up that role in September, so that was moved forward. Always really good feedback from that. We had 9 participants again at that training. Some of them were new to the RE coordinator role, and some of them were returning after some time. Really positive evaluations again. So the primary network meeting that happened on the 4th of October, we focused on ways of knowing in RE, which is something that's come out of the Ofsted research review into RE. So allowing teachers to really engage with that latest thinking from Ofsted and give them some practical strategies on how they can focus on ways of knowing in the classroom. And we had 17 teachers attend that, and again the feedback was really positive about that too. So coming up, we've got secondary network on the 22nd of November, and we will be looking at how to engage learners in RE in Key Stage 3 in particular. And we try and be as democratic as we possibly can. So the training focus for the secondary twilight on the 14th of December. We're going to be looking at Key Stage 4 provision in RE, following on from the earlier network. But we're going to be talking about the training needs going forward as well. So allowing teachers to decide what the focus is going to be for them. So I've already mentioned that we've got the secondary and primary cross-phase network coming up in the spring term, and then we've got 2 further networks then to come in summer 2023, so another primary and another secondary network. So the training focuses for those networks have yet to be decided, because we decide them meeting by meeting, so that we make sure that what we do is really relevant and meeting teachers' needs.
Thank you, Angela. I've got a couple of quick questions. Do St Crispin's charges to host?
No, they don't, because obviously we invite their colleagues to come to the meeting, and on that basis, no, they've been really generous actually. I think they even provided refreshments free of charge.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, no,
that's
they've
amazing.
been really generous with that. Yeah.
And my second question was, with the secondary network meeting, do our secondary colleagues have to sort of email beforehand to say, yeah, I'm coming along, or is it just literally who shows up on the day?
Catherine sends them, because Catherine's got a contact list of all the heads of RE in secondary schools. She just sends them all. If it's a Teams meeting, she just sends them all the link, and they can just turn up. And I think also with the in-person meeting, she just sent a calendar invitation and anyone could turn up. So we don't ask teachers to book, which has pros and cons. I think it's difficult in that we don't know how many will come, but also I think teachers know they can just turn up and it doesn't matter if they haven't got around to booking, they can just come. So yeah, I'm not sure what the best process to use is, but
we can review it and see how many show up for this time, and if we think maybe they need to book, then we can sort of maybe decide that next year. We can have a go, we can see how it goes. Are there any other further questions for Angela from anybody? Just looking down the list. No. Okay. We are storming through our meeting this evening. Item 9 is Sacre Hub updates. So Andrew, it's you again.
Okay. So the Sacre Hub updates, I must confess that I had to send my apologies for the September meeting, so I don't know if Stephen or Beth want to just fill us in on what happened at the actual meeting, but it's very much about the syllabus development at the moment with the Sacre Hub. You will have noticed, those of you in Group A and B, that there was an email circulated recently asking for some feedback about what you feel are the kind of most important aspects of your faith, your worldview, for inclusion in the new syllabus when that gets written. I would say that at the moment the hub is very much focusing on that syllabus development, and as well as that, the Real People, Real Faith project is still ongoing. There's been lots of further opportunities to get bits and pieces of funding for that, which has meant that we've been able to film different faith communities to see some diversity within and across those communities, and that's been really beneficial. So some notes are being produced to accompany those videos as well as we speak, and teachers are finding them really useful. They're being hosted on the NatRe website. I don't know, Stephen, if there's anything else you'd like to say about that meeting I wasn't able to come to in September.
So just a couple of things to pick up in terms of, and Emily, will be a question for you. Funding for the syllabus review, is that time limited?
No. So I've had a discussion with colleagues in finance about this, and they are happy for us to, at whatever point we need to spend around the same amounts that we spent on the last syllabus review. And I need to remind myself exactly what that was, but basically they've said in general terms, they're happy for us to spend what we spent last time, roughly, whenever we need to do that. Yeah.
And I think you've answered my second question. Will we have the money available? And it sounds like yes, we will. So colleagues around the table, you'll remember that every 4 or 5 years we have to review the syllabus. And we're currently sort of coming up to that point, and we are very fortunate that Woking are very supportive of our syllabus review compared to colleagues I talk to, and I'm sure Angela as well, up and down the country. They don't always have the same financial backing that we always have. Claire.
Sorry, could you clarify what the hub is?
Of course, sorry, I think you get so used to talking about things and everybody understanding. So quite a few years ago, all of the Berkshire Sacres decided to come together and basically work far more collaboratively with each other. So although we're individual Sacres, with our own advisors and our own budgets. We also work together within a hub, so we all put in X amount of money per year. We have a hub advisor who's called Anne Andrews, and she oversees projects that essentially benefit us all, such as the syllabus review. We also have a project that Catherine in our Sacre led on called Crossing the Bridges, where Catherine made contact with various places of worship to try and encourage children and young people to go and visit them on a school trip. What Angela was talking about, Real People, Real Faith, is a series of short video clips whereby members of different faith groups are being asked questions and being interviewed, and then they've been shared with schools. And perhaps the biggest project that the hub undertakes is every 4 or 5 years is the syllabus review, and that's where we're at the moment.
Cool. Thanks very much.
On the back of the syllabus review, there was a conversation and discussion around delaying things a little bit further as we sort of come out of the post-COVID, if we can call it post-COVID. I mean, COVID's still around, or as we come out of the pandemic. Just there was a sense to give schools more of an opportunity to get to a bit more of a normality. So what we have asked at the hub is for Anne Andrews, the hub advisor, to put together a timeline for us of what it would look like in terms of delaying things. We do have to, and Angela, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think we do have to convene a review conference, but that review conference can delay things by a year or by 2 years if needs be. Is that correct, Angela?
That's correct, yeah.
And it was very much, I think my impression, what I got from the meeting is that I think that's what we possibly will be advising, is that we delay things for a year just to give schools an opportunity to get back to, like I said, some sense of normality. Are there any further questions around any hub updates? No, there is another action, Catherine, just for the minutes from the last meeting, that I was to discuss crossing the bridges at the hub, and I haven't done that. I would do that at the next hub. I was juggling my youngest being at home and being in the hub meeting, so I will, as I said, bring that up at the next meeting. Right, and now I'm looking, I'm just trying to find my agenda for today.
National updates next, Stephen.
Thank you. I'm working off 2 computers. I've got like my work computer and my one here, so thank you. So Angela, it's you again, the national updates.
Gosh. Okay, so there's lots of national updates, so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the main things that perhaps Sacre members could engage with, and maybe give some thought to, because there's a lot going on in the world of RE. So I would suggest that you have a really good read of the national updates, and if you do have any questions for me now, I'll try and answer them, and I'll try and kind of whiz through some of the main points. So looking at the kind of national picture for RE, and external examinations, we are seeing in England a rise in the number of pupils who are taking a GCSE full or short course in RE, or religious studies as the qualification is called. But we're also seeing, conversely, a fall in numbers for A levels. So NATRE, the National Association of Teachers of RE, is looking into the reasons why that might be now, doing some research into those figures. Still very much the pauper subject in some ways, in terms of national spending. We've seen that there has been some quite generous looking spending for some of the subjects on the curriculum. However, RE is not getting a slice of the cake, as it were, there. So there's been some campaigning going on around that. And you know, NATRE are being very proactive, and they've managed to get to a point where there's been just last week a parliamentary debate on RE as a subject in schools, and I can circulate a link to that for anybody who would like to have a look at that in the room at their leisure. It came out too late for it to go into the updates, I'm afraid, but it has happened. I would say as well that that what's going on in Wales could have a bearing on what happens to pupils in England in terms of the new GCSE proposals. So in Wales, there's a consultation that people in England are more than welcome to take part in as well. So as individuals, I'd suggest that you have your say on the proposals for the new GCSE in religious studies. There is a proposal that that qualification will be constituted of 30% coursework and 70% exam. But the qualification will be called the same as it is in England, GCSE RS, and also short course is the proposal is in Wales that short course will no longer be available to learners as well. So often, what happens in Wales can have an impact later on in England and vice versa. So I definitely recommend that people get onto that consultation and have their say if they can.
Angela,
so,
sorry, Sam. I think Sam's got a hand up.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully you can hear me. I keep cutting out. I'm being stupid, I'm sure, but what's the difference between a short course GCSE RE and a long one? Being a primary, I don't know the difference.
Oh, okay. Right. So short course is it's basically half the content of a GCSE, but the pupil will get a grade. So a 9 to 1 in England, or an A star to G in Wales. But they will have short course RS rather than full course. It's been something that's been really popular because of the statutory requirement for RE at Key Stage 4, and some schools don't have enough time to get pupils through a whole GCSE, but they can manage to get pupils through a short course, and then the pupil gets accreditation for it.
The school can't use it to count towards, say, for example, the headline figures, so it doesn't fit in. So secondary, you measure progress by progress 8, and you can't use a short course. And lots of colleges, this is just my ex-head of RS head now, like we never personally did short course. We'd always go for the full course just because students can't use it to count towards their sort of 5 grades to get into like college and sixth form. But as Angela said, when schools are pressed by time, it's better that than no RS.
Do you think that's why there's you said there was an uptake in the short course so that they can meet the requirements? Is that the suggestion then? So they can meet the requirements of Key Stage 4, they'll do the short course, but it doesn't count to the
I think so. I mean, it does count as some UCAS points when a pupil is applying later on for university. So it does have its benefits for pupils, but yeah, there's like Stephen said, there are all sorts of issues with counting it in performance measures and so on. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would say definitely engage with that consultation if you can. There are regional hubs now. NatTree has had some funding from the Religious Education Council for England and Wales to get some regional hub leads in place. The Wokingham area comes under South East, whose hub leader is Justine Ball, who's very experienced, very expert RE practitioner. Has served as a joint chair of the Association of Advisors for the RE advisors, inspectors and consultants, ARIAC. So this will go out in the newsletter, I think, Emily, and we will mention it in networks so that teachers have chances to engage with those hubs. So there's websites, and there are various training opportunities and opportunities to network on social media and so on as well in those regional hubs. It's much bigger than Wokingham or Berkshire actually, so it gives teachers a chance to connect on a broader scale really. So the In Conversation series, Cullen St Gabriel's again, they are having a series of conversations with people who are experts in a particular area of religion or worldviews. That there is a programme of those events. If you can go as a Sacre member, they're all free, they're all online, and they're all about 45 minutes long, so they're not, very, they don't make a huge demand on your time. If you can go live, it's great because you can actually have conversation and ask lots of questions, but there are recordings available as well, so definitely engage with those if you can. Lots of new resources coming out. So one really good resource that we've highlighted here is the Jewish Museum London, their inclusive Judaism package that really engages with Judaism and diversity within Jewish traditions, within Jewish worldviews as well. So that's a good package for schools to engage with. Strictly is coming up. So Strictly RE, that's a national conference for RE teachers. Emily and I were talking about this before, but in our pre-meeting, and there could be an opportunity if any Sacre members wish to attend that, if they can express an interest to Emily, and Emily will look into whether she can make that happen. For a Sacre member to attend. It's a huge conference. We've got keynote speakers, and there are 21 workshops and about all different aspects of RE across all key stages. Most of the workshops are run by teachers who are in the classroom, are intended to kind of help other teachers, but also they'll foster your understanding of what goes on in the RE classroom as well if you're not in the classroom yourselves. Spirited Arts continues, and that's our national competition at NatTre for pupils to express their creativity and to produce a piece of art of almost any nature to submit and get some good publicity about RE in their schools and so on. So there's 6 themes this year, and they're set out in the newsletter. Lots of videos and free resources.
Sorry, Angela, can I just jump in, just because there was an action from the last meeting around Spirited Arts. Do you know, we asked, had there been any entries on Wokingham schools, and I think you were going to see if I did email my colleague about that. I haven't had a response yet, but okay.
he was trying to find out for us, so I will chase that up.
Okay, yeah, and if you have anything to bring to the any just pictures to show us the February meeting, that would be great if there are.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do there, Stephen. Sorry for dropping the ball on that one.
No worries.
But, yeah, so lots out there for new teachers, so early career teachers. There's a whole programme of free webinars for them, and I've detailed those on the newsletter as well. The draft resource for religion and worldviews in the classroom, we did talk a little bit about this at the last meeting, and it was discussed at the hub as well, I believe. I wasn't at that meeting, but I believe it was discussed. I think we need to consider the kind of shift in paradigm towards a kind of religion and worldviews paradigm for RE, rather than the big 6 world religions that we are accustomed to. At the moment, that document is in flux. It's changed from being called a handbook to a resource. So I think possibly we will, like the hub, park our discussions of that particular document for the moment, and just focus on getting a basic grasp of worldviews as a Sacre. So I think that's it for the national updates.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the national updates? No. Okay. Angela, with item 11, Sacre updates, are there any others, or are they kind of rolled into the national updates?
Only just very quick update on Sacre, just to say that there's still an online training programme, and really great if Sacre members can engage with those training opportunities. If they want to do that, then please get in touch with Emily, who will make the arrangements to make that possible. There was the conference and AGM on the 23rd of May, but we've talked about that in the last meeting. And the analysis of Sacre annual reports is it has been published. Huge variety in what Sacres are doing and the amount of funding they have available and resources. From our point of view at Wokingham, we're in a very strong and secure position.
Thank you. And then in terms of world views, I'm not sure if you would you've touched on it already. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to item 12.
I think at the moment, especially with the hub, thinking about delaying any kind of, at least any significant changes to the syllabus. I think we've probably talked quite a lot about worldviews. I would say that when I presented at the cross-phase network to teachers in St Crispin's, they were very enthusiastic on the whole about moving towards a worldviews paradigm, but felt that they needed, more clarity really about what that means in practice within the classroom. And I think that's something that we'll bear in mind as we move forward with the syllabus review.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions around that? So let me look around the room. No, so the item 13 is self-evaluation tool. Emily, do you mind just sort of taking over chairing? I'm just going to say goodnight to both my little ones. I'm just going to go off camera because they're about to go to bed.
Sure, thanks, Stephen. So, Angela, I don't know if you, you and I discussed this in our pre-meeting, didn't we? And do you want to just share what your advice is about that self-evaluation tool?
Yeah, so Sacre have come up with a self-evaluation tool, which is intended to help Sacres to fulfil their statutory duties and to perform really strongly to make sure that RE is effective and beneficial to pupils in every local authority. It is a lengthy document, and it would take a lot of time and resources really to engage fully with the self-evaluation tool in its entirety. What we decided in a previous meeting is that perhaps a good way forward would be to arrange a meeting, myself, Emily, Stephen and Beth, but also opening up that meeting to anybody who would like to come along to discuss that document in greater detail. And really, what we feel is that it would be helpful to look at the elements of the self-evaluation tool that we think can drive Wokingham Sacre forward in terms of where we need to develop and where we want to be going over the next few years. I have spoken to the hub, Pan Berkshire hub, and asked how their Sacres are engaging with the self-evaluation tool. It seems that most of them are taking that kind of approach as well. It is non-statutory. It's not something that we have to do as part of our statutory duties. But I think we need to discuss it and see where we can engage with it and whether it would be beneficial to the Sacre as a whole.
Stephen, you're on mute.
I know, I just saw you. Thank you, Angela. So, Catherine, if you wouldn't mind putting an action for Emily, Angela, Beth, and myself to sort of maybe get our calendars together to actually organise that meeting. If we try and maybe do it for the February the February meeting, and then once we have a date, we can send that out to members. And if any of you would like to join, you'd of course be more than welcome to, and then we can feedback a bit more in the February meeting. Before we just go on to, so the final item, any other business, Catherine, just for minutes purposes, the only other action I've got from Emily was for you, actually, was for the Sacre leaflet. Somebody pointed out it didn't have a Christian symbol. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that.
Yeah, I did actually, and I don't know if I'm looking at the right document, if I've got the one that Catherine meant, but the Sacre leaflet that I've looked at has 3 religions represented on the front cover and 3 on the back cover. So there's a picture of a Christian church on the front cover. So I think all the 6 religions are represented, but maybe I've misunderstood, Catherine.
Yeah, sorry. And I think the point was the other religions had a specific symbol related to, but Christianity just had the building, which was kind of be in different shapes and forms. So there could perhaps be, I don't know, I don't think there's even a cross on there or a symbol of, I don't know what people would feel, across the Christian kind of family as to whether even symbol of, bread and wine or the cross, or more of a symbol than just here's a stone building and everyone else has a very relevant symbol.
I think actually what I can see is that there's a picture of a statue of a Buddha representing Buddhism, and then I think for Hinduism there's a symbol, and off the top of my head I can't remember one of the other religions there's a symbol, and then for Christianity, Judaism and Islam there's a photograph either of the place of worship or the religious text or inside the place of worship. So there's a mixture of images and symbols. There is a logo that we use for our Sacre that has the 6 symbols, which is the logo is on the leaflet. So I think it's just maybe a decision for when we renew that leaflet, which we do roughly once a year. What kind of images do we want? And maybe we want the same kind of image for each religion, because I think every religion has a representation. It's just that they're different. Some have got symbols and some have got buildings and some have got texts. So maybe we just want to discuss what kind of representation we want for each religion.
I mean, I don't have a major personal problem with it. It's just an observation that somebody said to me. So I thought, I guess, it's about consistency, isn't it? And what we want to, what message are we trying to put out there?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see if we're moving more towards a worldview approach. What do you put on for humanism? Be an interesting idea, because I'm not sure that they've got an identifiable symbol or place, and it does start to make it really quite complicated in representation for everyone there. I'd just make the point as well that for lots of the Christian community, the church is not a building; it's the people. The building is just the place of worship, and it really isn't that important to a lot of Christians within their worldview.
Yeah,
I'll come back to that point in a second, Nigel. I'm just conscious. Andrew, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, something that Emily just said is that if you look at our agenda in the front, there is that bar with the symbols, and maybe that's what we need to use to keep the the continuity of what we represent. Because to me, Sacre, I've always seen that that bar with the different symbols on it. I agree that, Nigel, that we haven't got humorist on there, but that's something that we need to look at into.
I think, as Emily said, we update the leaflet once a year. So if there are if anybody's got some really ideas or some strong opinions or strong views, please do share them with Emily, and then Emily can share with Angela, Beth, myself, and we can look at them. Nigel, I do take your point at what you're saying, and I like the word you use, Catherine, Christian families. I think, yeah, the building, it's not necessarily the building that makes the Christian family, it's the people. But it's it's noted, and it's something, any those views and any other potential input into the leaflet, please do let us know. So the final item for this evening, before we go to part 2, is just any other business from anybody. If anybody does have any other business. Emily?
Thanks, Stephen. You might have been planning to raise this anyway, Stephen, but I'm aware that this is Catherine's last meeting with us. So I just wanted to say a personal massive thank you from me, because Catherine does so much work behind the scenes. She has been an absolutely brilliant support to the Sacre and to my support for the Sacre. So as well as any other thanks that might be coming, I just wanted to say a personal thank you from me.
Thank you, Emily. Sam?
Mine was literally just a question from something that we've just all read. I saw the webinars for the ECTs. It's the ECTs in my schools that are really struggling with RE, if I'm honest, because they said that they didn't get a lot of time on it on the teacher training. Emily, is there any way that I can get like the ECT emails and send that out to them, so I can give it to my two? And I know my two are in the same hub. I've got 2 ECTs at the minute. I could contact the hub and I could send that on. But is there any way I can reach the rest of the people from Wokingham?
So we can certainly put it in education news, and obviously we rely then on, it's mainly head teachers that tend to read education news, but I would hope that they then share it with relevant colleagues. Yeah. I don't know that we've got a list of ECTs that we could send it to, but we can definitely put it in education news.
Okay. Fab. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Claire?
Sorry, I know this kind of relates to an earlier item, and I think Angela mentioned about how you talked a lot about worldviews. I was just wondering, so in the absence of, I guess, the syllabus being refreshed as early as you had planned, whether there was any intention of trying to introduce something around worldviews, or is it really the case that everything kind of, it has to be about the syllabus, and that's kind of restricts it and therefore pushes that back?
Angela, you're probably best placed to answer, but I'll try and sort of put to so my understanding is I don't think we can say, for example, put together like a unit on worldviews and push that out to schools now. I think it will be a case of waiting for when we do the full syllabus review, and more of those views will come into it. Is that correct, Angela?
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that we need to consider quite carefully when we convene an agreed syllabus conference. We should really discuss that in that forum when we hold that conference. In even if we decide that we're going to delay any changes to the syllabus for the time being, we need to be mindful that the Ofsted really do want pupils to be prepared for life in a multi-secular and multi-religious world, and that is the most frequent phrase that's coming up that relates to RE in inspection reports, that either pupils are or they aren't ready for that through the RE that they have in their schools. So I do think that we will need to give some consideration to that, and give teachers some guidance in thinking about how they can incorporate non-religious worldviews in an appropriate way, using the existing syllabus, because I think it's an important thing for them to bear in mind, and we certainly wouldn't want teachers and schools in Wokingham to be on a back foot with that, particularly if they are subject to Ofsted inspections. So yeah, I think that's something we've got to consider very carefully.
And the other thing I will add to that is, even if we do delay the syllabus review, there is still lots of work going on in the background. So you might remember sort of Angela saying at the start of the meeting that members of group A and B were sent some questions and just asked for their feedback. And if you have done that, our colleagues in group A and B, please do send them. Catherine, if it's all right to come to you for the time being, and then we'll get those sent to the hub. So I do think they probably will delay things just to give schools an opportunity, but there is, like I said, an awful lot going on in the background. So we will be coming to different members at different points, just so that Angela, Angela, you definitely will be involved, and Anne and the hub can hit the ground running when we are actually officially in the syllabus review year.
Oh, thank you.
I think just to add as well, I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out at the end of November in terms of the census data from 2021. So we're looking forward now to the release of the data on religion and belief, and I think that's going to be something that Sacre will need to engage teachers with. Chances are it might be that there may be more people who say that they don't have a religion, or that they subscribe to a humanist worldview, and so on, so forth. We can't predict with any accuracy, can we, at the moment?
Thank you, Angela. Is there any other business from anybody? No, so my final piece is, and you've heard a couple of times this evening, so Catherine and sort of Emily have sort of said that sadly this is Catherine's last meeting with us, which I'm absolutely, when I read the email, I was very disappointed and gutted. But we have somebody else who's going to take over, but they've got very, very big shoes to fill. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Catherine. I think her minutes are always very accurate, and she keeps all of us, Beth, myself, Emily and Angela, sort of on our toes and making sure we're doing everything amazing. So Catherine, you've been an absolute asset to us as art clerk, and we're really sad to see you go. But like I said to you at the start of the meeting, we'll get you back at some point, I'm sure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. We've it's honestly been our pleasure. So thank you very much. So that closes the formal part of our meeting. So Callum, we're going to go to part 2. So thank you. Oh, sorry.
We need to. There's 2 optional dates that we've penciled.
Oh, of course. Yes. Sorry.
Meeting, and we just need to decide which one to go for.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Emily. So the February meeting is the 20th of February, and that'll be virtual online. And then our face-to-face meeting, we've got a couple of dates penciled in, either the 5th of June, which will be right after the half term, literally the week after, I think, or the 12th of June, which will be a couple of weeks after the half term break. Just everybody's sort of calendars and preferences. I don't know if anybody, I know it's a bit of a way away. Historically, we've always done the first week after the half-term break, but I think what's top of my head. Okay, so Andrew's 12th of June. Is that okay for everyone? I'm happy to go with 12th of June, unless anybody's got any major objections. And colleagues who aren't with us this evening, well, just have to accept the 12th of June. Andrew, does that work for you? 12th of June, okay. It's Catherine, if you wouldn't mind just recording that. So we've got the 20th of Feb and the 12th of June, which will be our in-person one at Wokingham. Okay, 12th of June is good for you as well. Okay. But I think, Callum, we're now at the point where we can finish our YouTube webcasting.